Welcome back to React Native Radio Podcast. Brought to you by Internet Explorer, which recently died. That was the huge roar of applause you heard earlier this week. Episode 240, What's New in Expo SDK 45?
Robin, I have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
What version of Java JDK is recommended for React Native?
I believe that would be version 11.
Version 11, okay.
Yeah.
And which one?
Zulu 11?
Zulu 11.
Zulu 11. And which one was your machine? Which one was your dev machine on this week?
That would be 1.8.
1.8.
That was not a typo. 1.8.
Or was it a typo? Did you type in 1.8 when you meant to put 11?
No. I don't know how that happened. I honestly have no idea why it was that old. I set this machine up in 2020, 2 years ago, but I would have expected it to be more like 8.
Yeah.
7.
Did they change the versioning numbers?
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, is this a thing where, like, they went from 1.8 to 8 type of a thing?
Maybe.
You remember when React went from 0.16 to 16 or something?
Yeah, they could have been a really big jump. But I will say I set this machine up using Jamon's Infinite Red Academy React Native course. So
that needs to be updated, doesn't it?
Maybe check that out.
For some reason, something tells me that tutorial says it's 1.18. So there must have been a jump at some point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Our Java 8 and Java 1. In short, 8 is the product version number and 1.8 is the developer version number. The product is the same, JDK 8. Okay. Maybe not as terrible as I was assuming.
Yeah, that just ruins the joke.
It does.
It just ruins the joke entirely. 1.8 to 11. You're just, so far behind.
But yeah, now I'm on 11 because I've been upgrading a project from React Native 60 to React Native 67. I started trying to update it to 68, and it was just, with all the new architecture stuff, it was too much. So I settled on 67.4.
I started working on Ignite 68 upgrade as well, and that was, I still not done because I'm running into some bug that nobody on the internet has run into.
You're on the bleeding edge.
I guess.
When did the upgrade helper come in? Was that 63? So you probably had to do it all manually.
Oh, no. The upgrade helper has been around, I was able to use the upgrade helper. It has versions all the way back to in the 50s, I think.
The upgrade helper is awesome. What I did, though, was I created a new a new React Native project. And then I copied the iOS folder over and did the merge thing. Mm-hmm. So on Mac OS, this is a tip for you folks. If you're in Finder, if you want to merge the two folders, when you're dragging the folder from the new project into the previous project, hold down, I think it's Option, and then it will turn to a little green plus, which is copy. When you drop it in there, it'll give you the option to merge. If you just move it, it won't give you the option to merge. Huh. So that's something to keep in mind. You do the option when you're dragging it in. And then when you merge, then you go look at your git diff. I did it in VS Code, so I could just go look at the git diff and then pull in any changes to the iOS folder that I wanted to keep. So instead of trying to update my old one, I could just replace it or merge it basically with the new stuff and then bring back in from the git diff any changes that I wanted to hang on to in my iOS folder.
That's a cool tip.
Oh, nice. That's a cool way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have to make sure that you name your why do I keep saying iOS? Your new React Native project the same so that it will come in with the same name. Otherwise, you're going to have problems.
Random name collisions. Yeah. So that was a fun little project to tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were just doing an upgrade then?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how now that we're getting into the stage of React Native's life where it's there's old versions out there and you have to kind of keep them up to date to keep up with Apple and Google's requirements. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how that whole process goes. We've gotten pretty good at upgrades, though, I got to say.
Yeah, I feel honestly this time around, I felt so much more confident tackling the various errors that came up. Yeah, I had a much easier time.
So it is worth saying that in React Native Radio 199, so that was actually quite a while ago, Robin and I, May 26th, 2021. That's today. It was
That's
a year ago.
Wow.
I realize people are listening to this much later but we're recording this on May 26th. Spoiler. And it was released a year ago, episode 199. Robin and I actually discussed strategies for upgrading React Native. So I guess it's appropriate for today.
So I will say, I wasn't going into this assuming that I would upgrade React Native. This was just kind of a week-long client, and they needed some test builds. But when I went to go build the project, I literally could not build it because, like,
too old.
Since in the year since we worked on this project, Mac OS has been updated, Xcode's been updated. It wouldn't build. So I had to upgrade just so that I could run it at all.
Yeah, well, that's why I started upgrading Ignite as well. I was trying to fix a bug that only showed up in a 0.68 project. So I'm like, oh, well, I better update to 0.68 so I can fix that bug. Yeah, well, you know how that goes.
It's always better to have the updated version. It's always better just to
it's true.
It's true. Be up to date.
We should, I guess, get into our program here instead of just talking about upgrades. Actually, we will be talking about upgrades, but it'll be a little different. I, of course, am Jamon Holmgren, your host and friendly CTO of Infinite Red. With me is Robin Heinz, co-host. She's a senior software engineer at Infinite Red as well. And Mazen Chami, who's a senior software engineer at Infinite Red. We're all at Infinite Red, and we are all here to look at Expo SDK 45. But before I get into that, this episode is sponsored by, surprise, Infinite Red. Infinite Red is a premier React Native design and development agency located fully remote in the US and Canada. If you're looking for React Native expertise on your next React Native project, hit us up. You can go to infinite.red/React Native. And don't forget to mention that you heard about us through the React Native Radio podcast. We want to make sure that they keep sponsoring us. And as owner of the company, I have no say over that.
We need to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
The lights of a remote office.
Right. You know what? Actually, I just an aside, we actually got a tiny, tiny, tiny office recently. It's literally like a desk and a chair. And it's not even in its own office. It's just in a room with other stuff.
It's a room in another office.
The whole reason for that is just to have a place to send mail that's not my personal residence.
What, you don't want your personal residence plastered all over
apparently
the internet?
I don't know.
No?
Sometimes I have hot takes and I don't want to get hate mail.
You wouldn't want anyone to come to your house and do anything untoward.
Yeah. By the way, if you have hate mail, my email address is mazen@infinite.red.
Oh, great.
Also, send us your weird bugs. We want to do an episode on weird bugs, so just send it to @ReactNativeRDIO on Twitter, and we will take a look. All right, let's get into it. Our topic is what's new in Expo SDK 45. So, Expo released SDK 45. When was that?
Well, the blog post was released May 5th.
Okay.
And we're recording this on May 26th.
3 weeks. 3
weeks
later,
yeah.
So by the time you listen to this, it'll be a little bit older, but Expo tends to, I think, do about a quarterly release cycle, something like that. And so SDK 45 came out and they actually are fully upgraded. I guess this is relevant to 0.68.2. That's the biggest piece of this, but there's a lot more too.
Yep. So some of the highlights, they have an updated UI for Expo Go. So that looks a lot prettier and it sounds like it's a little bit more functional, more streamlined.
And can you explain what Expo Go is?
Expo Go is sort of the hub for all of your different Expo projects. That's about what I know. Yeah.
You can see all of your projects there and you can run them too. Just like it pulls in the JavaScript and you can run them right from Expo Go. It's kind of cool. It's sort of like the quickest way to get started with React Native because you're not compiling.
Yeah. It's sort of like, Expo's hub. I think it also will show you the various like snacks that you've opened.
Oh, I love Expo snacks. I love snacks in general, but I love Expo snacks especially.
Who doesn't love snacks? That's such a great name.
I guess I feel like that. That was intentional. Like full snack developer now actually also means that you're good at Expo.
Can I put that in my resume?
Full Expo snack developer.
I'd like to update my podcast bio to a full snack.
Full snack.
developer.
I like Expo Go. I don't tend to use it except for with it's more demos. I think once things start getting serious, with an app, then of course I'm kind of moved to my own build. But there's also Expo pre-build, which is awesome. We're not going to go into all that, but that Expo Go updated UI. It's really cool.
So they've also revamped the clipboard and web browser modules to use the new Suite API, which I think is related to the shift from Expo Unimodules to Expo modules.
Just the Expo package.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I started reading about what the Suite API is because that's a really sweet name.
It is.
But no. Okay.
As a early millennial / late, I think, do they call us Xennials? Essentially Gen X / whatever. I'm 40. So I use the word sweet a lot. And I don't know if other
Sweet.
generations do, but I use sweet a lot. Like, oh, that's sweet.
I use Sweet.
Do you?
I think that's
well,
partly.
but you're kind of on the, you're a millennial.
I'm like dead center millennial.
You are.
I'm like literally in the middle of the 20-year span.
Isn't that kind of a millennial thing, the sweet thing? Like, I feel like it
Maybe,
is.
yeah. Sweet and cool are definitely.
Well, cool's been around. Like, my dad claims he invented it. So,
I use cool over sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that's cool.
How come cool
But I would
has...
say sweet, like sweet.
Yeah, I do too. How come cool has stood the test of time? It doesn't seem like something that...
I guess it
just
was
cool.
from like, you think about like, oh, you cool cats and kittens. It's like a 50s, 60s thing.
I guess because when you're like flustered, you feel hot, you like feel like you feel a little, you're sweating.
Right, so you want to
Where
keep your
cool is like you're calm, collected, cool.
Yeah, it is for universal.
So it kind of makes sense.
I don't think the Gen Z lingo is going to stand the test of time.
Yeah, maybe not.
No cap.
Maybe not.
Time will tell.
That's the only one I know.
We'll see. We'll see. People can listen to this many years later. I'm sure that they're going to be very curious about Expo SDK 45.
Anyway,
The
Suite.
What is Suite API?
The Suite API. I read about it. It's more complex than is in my wheelhouse, but it has to do with this feature in Swift UI called result builders. And so it's possible. It makes it possible to create native modules declaratively with a module definition.
That's right up their alley, because Expo's doing more like declarative native stuff where you can... Well, Expo pre-build. That's an example of it. We should really have probably someone from Expo on here to talk about that.
Again.
Evan Bacon or Brent or Charlie or something. Yeah, that would be cool. So they're moving that direction. Apparently, Clipboard and web browser are now using them. I assume others will follow. There's also Expo Crypto, Expo Random, Expo Haptics, and Expo Localization that are all now using JSI. So that's cool.
Yeah. Expo AV also moved to JSI, supporting sampling audio frames. So makes it easier.
In JavaScript.
Yes. So
that's awesome.
Can we get a quick reminder what JSI is? I know what it stands for JavaScript interface.
So it lets you call native C++ code, which then can call other things like Swift and Objective-C and Java and Kotlin.
Part of the new architecture.
And that's a component of the new architecture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And by coming up to React Native 68.2, there's access to the new architecture there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's I would say probably the main highlight of Expo 45 is that it supports React Native 68, which has the new architecture flag.
So there's the sound object, you have a set on audio sample received. So it allows you to like get that. Basically, it's a callback, and it allows you to then do something with the audio sample. That'll be cool. That'll enable some new types of apps within Expo and outside of Expo.
Yeah, I've used Expo AV before, and it's pretty good library, letting you do audio and video. And the video aspect is really cool. I did some live streaming video on there as a test, and it was pretty robust library.
I really feel like Expo, we're big Expo fans, obviously, here. And it feels like that old marketing campaign by Apple with there's an app for that. I feel like there's an Expo module for that.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Well, what in this same project that I've been upgrading React Native on, there's a lot of other sort of older, outdated libraries that aren't maintained anymore, and I'm looking for replacements. And I always look to the Expo packages first because there's almost always a perfect library.
And almost all of them can be used outside of Expo managed projects too.
Yeah.
If you're not even using Expo, I mean, you bring in like the Expo package, but.
And they're maintained, they're supported, they're documented, like it's easy.
The next thing on here, it's easier to control excluding permissions in Android libraries. So now in your JavaScript or app.json or app.config.js file, you could pretty much bring it in using android.blocked permissions. So that will add, XML attributes to your Android to where you can, stop access to specific modules. Talking about, let's say microphone.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, just more control, and you can do it just from the app.json, which is of course really straightforward, simple. I like that. That's cool. More runtime version validation. What does that mean?
There's something about the trailing zero being silently truncated on runtime. So now numbers ending in 0, like 1.10, will be addressed as needed.
Yeah.
Android, it says here, Android's weakly typed configuration files won't silently truncate the leading 0. So if you had version 1.10, Android in the past would take it to as 1.1, which would cause some
that'd
issues.
be annoying.
That's really, for versions that actually
that's very
matters.
important.
That's very
Just
important.
imagine what Robin would do with that, with her versioning issues. Bumped Android compile SDK version to 31. I think it was 29 before or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Java 11.
Yep,
there you go.
That's all, part of the React Native 68.
Yeah. So let's talk about the 0.68. That's a bump. Still React 17. React 18 is coming in 69.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great that Expo's on the leading edge here, 68.2 as of this recording, of course.
And they do clarify that they're including React Native 68, but Expo modules do not yet support the new architecture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're working on it. But
it's behind a flag, but at least they're bringing stuff in and kind of like getting you up to that level.
You can expect them to start rolling out support in their Expo modules this summer.
Coming soon this summer.
We of course did an episode on React Native 0.68, so definitely check that out. It was a recent episode, and we talk all about that. So we probably won't go into it too much here, but 0.68 is an exciting, probably the most exciting release since 60, I think, from React Native.
Mm-hmm. They've also deprecated a bunch of libraries. Probably skipping ahead here in the article, but it's pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. They've deprecated a bunch and renamed and removed some. So if you're using some of these, you might have to take a look at them. Some of the libraries that have been deprecated are Expo AdMob, Analytics Amplitude, Ads Facebook, Google Sign-In, Expo Segment. So be careful if you're using those. I know one of them, Expo App Loading, was deprecated and moved in favor of Expo Splash Screen.
Yeah, and it looks like also in some cases the React Native versions, the kind of vendor supported ones, are good enough and they work with Expo to where Expo doesn't need to provide their own version of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've also dropped SDK 41 in favor of 42. We kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier. And then Node 12 support has been dropped, so that's something to watch out for.
I know that we have at least one project that's on 42, so that's going to need to be updated. By the way, they're not using like Expo Managed, but they're using the Expo package itself, so that's going to have to be updated. It's not dropped yet, but iOS 12 support will be dropped in 47, so I assume in about a year or so.
Wow, we're already dropping iOS 12.
Yeah, things keep moving.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, that's why we have a job as consultants.
That's true.
So keep it up, everybody. Keep breaking backwards compatibility. It just keeps us rolling here.
There's also updates to Expo CLI.
Okay.
SDK 45 includes a beta release of the new versioned local Expo CLI,
Mm-hmm.
which is
This
smaller.
is a trend.
Mhm.
This is a trend. Like moving away from like the global CLIs toward more of a internal CLI.
I don't think in the past year I've used a global CLI.
Yeah.
I feel like everything is now on NPX,
Mhm.
and it makes it easier. I feel like it's cleaner because it'll ask you, do you want to install it? You could say yes or no. If you say yes, it does the cleanup afterwards where it's not even installed technically.
What happens
So-
if you say no?
I believe it can continue.
I've always said yes because I thought you had to say yes in order for it to run.
That's a very
And
good.
then it would get rid of it.
I think it might
Yeah.
actually just quit.
It might quit.
Right. I think it just says like, okay, no,
Yeah.
you're not giving me permission, so I can't.
Yeah. I've always said yes, knowing it removes it.
It does cache it. And so that, but yeah, I mean, like NPX is awesome. And I've been using it for Ignite CLI for a long time, like NPX, Ignite CLI, something. The other thing is when I run like the React Native CLI, if I'm in a project and I need to run it, I run yarn React-Native. And that will use the local like node modules.
So there's
version of
there's
it.
a version of the CLI in your node module.
Yeah. So when you run yarn React Native, regardless of whether it's in your scripts or not,
Interesting.
it will actually go find that and then run it.
I've been using NPX for projects, but I didn't know that maybe that's not a good idea.
NPX might.
I just ran a test on it. If you did say no, it would cancel. So
Okay, it does cancel.
you
Okay.
need yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I've been running NPX React Native, like run iOS and run Android for some projects.
So NPX, I just looked it up. NPX does first look in your node
Okay.
modules. So that'd be the same as using yarn and then
Okay.
whatever. And then secondly, it'll look globally. If it exists globally, it'll just use the version that's there. And if it doesn't find it either place, then it will install it temporarily and run it. So
So if you're using NPX and you want it to just use the latest, you just have to make sure that you've uninstalled any global versions, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
And also, and I've run into this, sometimes clear the cache of
Yes.
NPX. NPX has a cache that you have to sometimes clear.
Caching.
But if you're using NPX Expo, you need to change it to NPX Expo-CLI,
Mhm.
which will use... Basically what they're saying is if you're using that right now, change it to Expo-CLI. Otherwise, you will probably accidentally invoke the new local CLI. Later, when you use NPX Expo, you know, like when it's out of beta and stuff, it'll use the local one. So just kind of keep that in mind. That will eventually be I assume the proper way to run Expo CLI is NPX Expo or Yarn Expo within your project, and then it'll use node modules first.
NPX is definitely seems like the way of the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I've noticed that there's a few people who have NPX and then their name. So like, I don't know, like if you were to say NPX Jamon Holmgren, and it like puts a output on your screen of
like a resume or
like
something?
a resume
Oh
or a
my
bio or something.
gosh.
It's kind of cool. It's a little, I mean, like you're literally downloading untested, unreviewed code and running it as yourself on your shell. I don't think I really recommend this. Like, I should almost like do a Jamon Holmgren package and then
It's a cool party trick, but it's
don't do
maybe
this.
don't do that.
Yeah. And if someone tells you to do NPX their name, you're probably asking for trouble.
Don't run things that you don't.
What I'll do is I'll
what they are.
roll up all of your environment variables and then display them on the
Oh my
screen
God.
and say that I could send these to myself if I wanted to, but I'm not going to because I'm a good guy.
The next one, there's an update to ES, the Expo's update service. This now replaces Expo updates. So it's their new updating feature to build and submit your apps. You can also find this in the Expo Go app.
It's like over the air updates, right? Kind of like code push, right?
Yeah.
So I've been using Expo updates, which, you know, if I like want to publish an update to my app, I just say Yarn Expo publish, and then it rolls up a new bundle, sends it out, and then you can, in your app, just check for that, and it will update automatically. It's pretty cool. But this looks like it's sort of like tying it into the EAS build system. I don't know if I'm going to be switching from Expo updates right away, but I am already using EAS for building my app when I do need to publish a new version, full version. So it's a natural step for me to switch over from Expo updates to EAS update. So I will probably eventually be doing that. And I assume that, it's going to be going that direction.
You can also use EAS update with a bare React Native project to help you with all that. So that's also a cool feature if you want to leverage this aspect of Expo.
And the last thing that we are going to touch on in this Expo SDK 45 update is that EAS now has Xcode 13.3. So it has like a new image that you can build with that has Xcode 13.3, which is the default image that is used for if you're using SDK 45. And there's some improvements in the EAS CLI, so it'll actually see progress in the build queue. Right now, like EAS CLI, like when I run EAS build or whatever, it will say we're waiting for the build to finish, and you can go here to see progress, and then you can link over to it. But they're actually adding that into the CLI, so you can see it, the progress right at your terminal. So that's pretty cool. And then there's also a few other things that they're looking at, for example, app extensions and some other things just to kind of enhance the EAS build stuff that you can do. There's also some new like build properties you can do, like compile SDK version and deployment target, so you can set some more build configurations in your configuration. So just overall, it looks like it's moving forward. SDK 45 looks like a pretty good release. Nice work on this Expo, people. You can see all the rest of there's more. We didn't touch on everything, but you can go check it out. Mm-hmm. We'll link to the blog post in our show notes.
Definitely read through that if you're about to upgrade your Expo SDK. There's also links to the full changelog, which has even more deprecations and additions and removals. So yeah, definitely read through that.
Cool. And we will probably by the time this episode comes out, Ignite should be updated to use the latest Expo SDK if you're passing in the -- Expo option. So look for that update as well. And I think that pretty much does it for this episode. If you'd like to nerd out more about React Native, check out my Twitch stream at rn.live. I have a new website there. You can also join our Slack community, community.infinite.red. We have over 2,000 React Native developers in there, a lot of Expo developers as well. You can also check out the new React Native Twitter community if you go to rn.twitter.infinite.red. Where can people find you online, Robin?
I'm at Robin_Hines with an E at the end.
Mazen?
I'm at Mazen Chami.
And you can find me at Jamon Holmgren. You can find React Native Radio at React Native RDIO. As always, thanks to our producer and editor, Todd Worth, our assistant editor and episode release coordinator, Jed Bartosky, our designer, Justin Husky, and our guest coordinator, Derek Greenberg. Thanks to our sponsor, Infinite Red. Check us out at infinite.red/React Native. A special thanks to all of you listening today. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. We are React Native Radio, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.